All right. So today we're going to discuss three main things. The first thing is we want to discuss in the topic of monetizing AI products, we want to talk about the blockbuster nature of AI products. AI products are different. They are like SaaS products, but they are actually more like Hollywood movies. And we'll talk about how. The next thing is that there is now a regime change happening in technology that is changing from software, or rather SaaS software, to the AI economy. And the AI economy has different metrics, it has different economics. We'll get into that. And finally, we will talk at length about the packaging and pricing of Gen AI products. So that should comprise enough of a holistic landscape of how AI products should be monetized. So we'll get started with the first part. So very recently, Lex Friedman podcast with the Prime Minister of India, and it was a very popular podcast. And interestingly, the Prime Minister did not talk in English, and his voice was dubbed and converted into English using 11 Labs. I've used the 11 Labs software; it's pretty cool. And it's interesting to know there's not been a very long time, but they're already 3.3 billion in valuation. That is quite something that we have not seen that in the SaaS world. And that's one indication of how, if AI products work, they can become blockbuster products. Another example is Cursor, right? So they're hitting 100 million in revenue in 12 months, which is like, you cannot even think how somebody can do that. A company I was at previously that hit 100 million took about 20 years of its existence to get there, and that was a success story. So it's 0 to 100 million in 12 months is insane, but that has happened with Cursor. There are other products that I like. There is this product called SEO Bot that is an AI powered product that just puts your SEO blog posting on autopilot, which has also scaled pretty well. So the point I'm trying to make is that generative AI products are like blockbuster movies. So traditional SaaS products is the profit equation. Profit is revenue minus cost. And revenue and cost are somewhat more deterministic. Once you have achieved product market fit, roughly the kind of revenue that you're going to get. And the costs are very predictable. Once you have made the initial investment in servers or hosting, or maybe you're using something like Amazon EC2, even then the costs are very predictable. But in AI software, revenue is very unpredictable. If you have 100 companies, two or three companies may have the Cursor like revenue or like revenue, and all of the companies are going to have very high costs that run high for a very long time. Therefore, if a VC is investing in 100 AI startups, the failure rate is going to be very high, but the hit rate, because the VC model inherently is blockbuster based, they're still going to make money. But the carnage of failure is going to be much higher. The carnage of money wasted on the inference cost, the development cost is going to be much higher. And that is just the nature of the beast. This is not as simple as monetizing a traditional SaaS product, and that needs to be understood, that the margins are tighter. Customers may or may not like what you're building. And additionally, in a product like Salesforce CRM, it's a WYSIWYG. I want to create opportunities in my CRM. It's easy to do so. I want to add salespeople. I want to assign salespeople to opportunities, put a dollar amount, put notes. All of that is WYSIWYG. But when you ask ChatGPT to create an image, that is not WYSIWYG. It may create the image you want, it may not. It is completely probabilistic. And for a lot of products, the output may or may not be something you like, and then you'll keep generating more and more output until you like something. And even that liking something is subjective, and it is not built to spec necessarily. And this is the trick with generative AI products, that even the output is probabilistic. Hence, you don't really know how well it's going to stick. At a meta level, maybe you will find out eventually, but you will have spent a lot of money by then. All right. So that is the basic economics of Gen AI products. Sam Altman recently launched the $200 ChatGPT Pro subscription. We use it in our organization, and Sam, he said that people use it so much that they're losing money. Now, this is the right hand side of that equation, right? He has a product where the revenue side works. He has a product where the demand is very high. But because the costs are also very high, charging somebody flat rate $200 per user is not working, because they are completely going to town on that product, right? The usage is off the charts. because the usage is off the charts, the inference costs are off the charts, and a lot of those accounts, they are in the negative. That almost never happened with SaaS. This is the first time we're seeing software products running into the red because of inference costs or other data costs. In my adult lifetime, maybe there were software incarnations previous to that were more expensive, but in the cloud era, that this is very new that we're hearing. And so this is another thing to understand if you're trying to monetize an AI product. A podcast that I really BG2, I definitely recommend everybody to watch it. Bir Gurley is a VC who is now semi-retired, and he does this podcast with another gentleman. And he mentioned something which I almost made an infographic of. He says there is something calling is the negative gross margin AI theory. It goes something like this: there are foundational layer platforms, and then there are application layer platforms built on top of that. But everyone is losing money today. Everyone is thinking that at some point they will have enough users, they will have enough of a mind share that then after that they may start to increase the price of these services. So the AI services built on top of the foundation models are the most risk prone because the underlying cost can change anytime, and they're already taking a hit on margin and profitability just to win, and they're losing money much faster than other SaaS companies as a result. Bill, he predicts that there's going to be a reckoning, and the reckoning will have consolidation across a lot of foundation layer products as well as application layer products. And while costs are getting cheaper, the costs are still pretty high, that sooner or later you will see the consumer bearing the cost at some point, especially once one product takes off. But those are interesting dynamics. So we have understood that this is inherently hit or miss blockbuster nature. If something works and has massive adoption, then you can optimize price and cost. But you really need to have a large war chest even to get to that stretch. So next point, in Silicon Valley, there is now what is happening is a regime change from SaaS to the AI economy, and let's dive deep into what that means. So earlier, SaaS companies used to have 80+% gross margins. I used to work at a company that had a contact center product that had a 95% gross margin. The costs don't really scale after some point as you get more and more customers. That creates a certain type of company valuation. You get 10 to 30x the revenue multiple. But today's AI products have 30 to 50% gross margins. That is much lower because of all of the things I discussed before. In this case, how is this company going to be valued? Is this going to be valued like a traditional SaaS company? Maybe not. 30 to 50% is the margins that services companies get. Now, of course, AI companies are going to probably still have higher growth rates, and so their valuation will be higher than services companies. But there is going to be a change. There is going to be a regime change with these new products, and it's going to be interesting to see how valuations change, how revenue changes, how these companies are operating, and so on. Before I get to the next slide, I just want to paint this picture for you. The pricing model is something that affects the cash flow variance and timing. Meaning, if you have something like usage based pricing, you may get money much later down the road, and the money that you will get is going to be very variable compared to something like user based commit. Now, user based commit, as we previously saw, may not work very well because the costs are going to be really high. So, you may be forced into choosing a usage based model. But if you are using a usage based model, it impacts sales compensation, financial reporting, the SaaS metrics, how and when you're getting money, and how and when you're getting money is going to have tangible impact on how you make investment decisions and further on the valuation of your company. So there is this chain, the supply chain of monetization that starts from pricing. Why is this important? So one of the people I really respect a lot in the valley, his name is Dave Kellogg, and he talks a lot about SaaS metrics amongst other things. He was talking that, hey, in the SaaS world, everything is based on the back of ARR, right? It's a annual recurring revenue, and this started with monthly recurring revenue that gets extrapolated to annual recurring revenue, ARR, net retention rate, valuation as a multiple of ARR. These are the cornerstones of most SaaS companies. But in the AI usage world, now you have usage pricing. So therefore, you cannot have ARR. There is no recurring revenue. There is no recurring concept in usage. There may be and we can talk about whether there are fixed fees in usage, but a purely usage model, there is nothing recurring. People come, people use, people go away. So therefore, the ARR has to be some sort of estimated ARR metric. If there is a net retention rate, now you will have some sort of net expansion rate, and that is inferred and looked back in previous time periods and forecasted. Valuation was also going to be some multiple of the implied ARR, and that will have an impact on valuation. You certainly will find that we will certainly find that nobody will be running a 100% variable revenue company. Even the companies that are offering usage based AI products are going to say, hey, you buy this fixed amount of usage for me and then I will sell it to you. Nobody's going to do pay as you go. But it is a new regime. It is a new different way of doing SaaS metrics. It is a different way of reporting. If these companies IPO, they join the ranks of companies like Snowflake, where everything is more usage based, and so the reporting changes. How the analysts ask you question, that changes. How the public values you, that changes. How the sales team gets paid, that changes. So the larger point I'm trying to make is it is a regime change. It is not just a pricing model change. Everything changes. So with that context, AI products have this blockbuster nature. There is a regime change happening that is going to impact all parts of the economics of AI firms. Let us now understand the fulcrum. The fulcrum is the packaging pricing. This is what will impact how your SaaS metrics will work. This is what will impact how you will be valued. And let's go a little bit more deeper into packaging and pricing, which is a substantial part of this presentation. So, when it comes to packaging and pricing, there are three main decisions. What is the offer for our defined who, which is our customer segment? That becomes your packages or your tiers. Your pricing metric is the basis on which you will charge. Is it a per user, per gigabyte, per credit, per token? What is the basis? And then price point is that for that chosen tier or package, and on that pricing metric, what will be the price point? So these are the three decisions that we have to figure out how to make for our upcoming AI products. Now let's start with packaging. Some of this is 101 about packaging, which doesn't really change. If you're trying to come up with a new product, and let's say you want to reach a broad market, right? Then you are something like Netflix. Netflix has one or two tiers at most, right? They are trying to reach the whole world, and across countries they don't have a lot of tiers, a lot of packages. It's pretty much clearly laid out. There's the $12 plan or $13 plan or what have you. On the other hand, there are companies like my former employer, Medallia, which sell to large financial services, insurance companies for multi-million dollar deals, and they may sell to retailers for 10 to 20K deals as well. For the larger deals, they often have to package their product in a more of an a la carte basis. They will talk to a financial service company, get an understanding of everything that is required, and then they will line item by line item custom scope these deals. And I remember a time when all of this used to happen when I was working there. Why do they have to do something that is more bespoke? Because the willingness to pay of a financial services company is very variable. It could be 2 million or 3 million, and the vendor is trying to maximize the return. They're trying to maximize how they monetize. So it does not help them to say, yes, this thing is 500K, and the company that was potentially willing to pay 5 million and the company that's potentially willing to pay 1 million end up paying 500K. They have to have more bespoke sizing for these enterprise customers. Hence, based on the nature of your market, you have this spectrum, and you can choose the type of packaging depending on the nature of the market. So that is packaging 101. But many times, and maybe on this call there are people joining who are wanting to understand, hey, I'm not creating a new product. We already have packages. I'm just creating a new feature and I want to add it to my lineup. What do I do? And this is a traditional question that most product managers ask. Hey, what do I do with this new feature? Should I just include it in all of the tiers? Should I charge more for it? And I will offer you the simple 2x2 rubric. If your new product has a high willingness to pay and a lot of people are going to want to pay it, then it makes sense that you incorporate some amount of that in all of the packages, and maybe a more sophisticated version in the most premium package. That way, everybody can use it to a certain extent and you can monetize it as well, but you have the largest room for maneuver in that point. Everybody wants it. Everybody has a high willingness to pay proportional to their tier. So you could even charge for it in all of your tiers if you wanted to, and include it in all of your tiers. It's really up to you. But if the willingness to pay was lower and the popularity was high, that is something that would be more of a pull even feature. That is more of a feature where everybody's going to appreciate it, but it may help your win rate. It may not help you monetize much more. So you may just flat out add it and incorporate in all packages without necessarily charging extra for it. Not others are not interested. So it could be something like an advanced enterprise level feature related to security that other customers, your smaller customers, may not have a use for. Then you may want to use it, add it as an add-on with a specific price point, because you're trying to monetize that higher willingness to pay, but you also know that fewer customers are interested. So this is just a basic rubric that you can think about when you're coming up with this new product, as to how you will package it. And I'll give you a few examples. This example is from Zendesk, and they have added a few AI powered things. They have added AI powered bots, and that is going to be a mainstay of their product. So they have included it as part of all of their packages, and you will see that they're monetizing them as well. So they have certain, like I will show you in the pricing metrics section, that they have certain amount of inherent bundled usage, and if you use more than that, it will cost you more. But they have included some amount in all of the tiers. That is a highly popular feature. But there is a somewhat more popular feature for enterprises, that is something that they call advanced AI, that they are having a fixed rate on a per agent basis. This is almost 40% of their base tier value. And this advanced AI does other things that maybe all of their customer base will not need. So this is how they have launched these two features. One is included and one is additional add-on. Now, Sentinel One is a company where they said, okay, we are going to have our AI security assistant and our agentic SOC analyst. The AI security assistant is included in some tiers, and the agentic AI analyst will be an add on, because potentially they think that will be monetized more. That has a potential of being monetized more. And they're still offering that in the premium product. But the AI security assistant is more available in some of the advanced tiers and is not really in the entry level tiers. So that is another way to look at how to package. PagerDuty's example is that they have added this AI ops as a separate add-on altogether, which is fairly expensive. They probably think that a subsegment of their market wants it, but when they want it, they have a very high willingness to pay for it. And hence that would make sense that this is how they would do it. So there are a lot of, we are not in these companies. We don't know exactly what they're doing. We are making conjectures around why they may be doing certain things, but we have to understand that the nature of your market, the nature of your customers will dictate how you package. And there are a lot of different options to package, right? So you don't have to feel, oh, I just definitely need to include it. I think more a rational conversation needs to happen within the company as to what we are trying to do with the new feature, what is our monetization goal behind it, and what is our customer preference and customer feedback. Okay, so that is the packaging. That's the first step. Okay, yeah, there was one other slide that I had here. So this is Zoho CRM AI example, that they start to add their AI in the enterprise plan, and then they add a little bit more premium features in the ultimate plan as well. All right. So moving to the next step, which is the pricing metric selection. So you have a lot of different options, and you have to choose the basis by which you're going to charge. The basis of charging lies on a spectrum. Either you have on the very left hand side of this chart a more fixed and predictable pricing metric, on the very right hand side a more variable metric. A fixed metric is something like, there's just a fixed fee on prem, there's nothing more, I'm not going to charge anything more. Or you can have the most common thing, like I will charge based on named user, which is similar to the OpenAI story I was showing you for the ChatGPT Pro subscription. On the other hand, if you're doing a token subscription with ChatGPT, that is completely variable. If you're doing an S3 bucket with Amazon, that is completely variable. So you have to decide what is the metric that aligns the buyer's value, the value gained by the buyer, to your success, right? And you have to align both their success and your success. Here are 7 factors we generally use and teach in our course, but the first 3 are about customers. Customers have a risk perception. They will go for a more variable thing if they think you are risky, so that may influence your decision. Customers may have mental anchors. So in an established category, they're going to say, hey, I am used to paying per agent. Why will I pay with some other metric? That may limit you. That often happens, but it may not happen for the case of AI products. Alignment value is the biggest thing. Do customers think that as this metric increases, it aligns with their success? It can't just be a metric. You are saying, hey, you are using so much of my product, but your business outcomes aren't changing, but I will still bill you. If that happens, the customers will leave. So first you need to figure out, does this increase in this metric help the customer in their ROI? And then you have to see, when that metric increases, can I charge and make money from it? So can I make money from it is dependent on a few things. The consumption pattern, how much are they using it? The cost patterns, what are the cogs for my product? And for AI products, cogs are very important. And then competitive action, I may think that X metric is good for me, but if all of my competitors are choosing Y metric, then my hand may be forced to choose Y metric as well. So I recommend making a list of the metrics that could work and just doing an assessment across these factors, and then making a selection. And this is more art than that it is science. You'll have to do some customer interviews. You'll have to see what works for customers, what works for you, and then finally you'll have to see whether you can even implement it. Many times companies will come up with a complicated set of 2 or 3 metrics, but then in a small startup, implementing that involves metering, it involves that being part of your CPQ system, it involves that being part of your billing system, joining in, linking everything, making sure your invoices are correct. And many companies falter. The bigger companies falter even more if you are moving to this. It is not necessarily that the most accurate, best in principle strategy is the winning strategy. A rough strategy may be a more winning strategy for you. So some examples. So when it comes to generative content, the par for the course, because the cogs are so high, companies are taking the route of dollar per amount of credit or token bundle. So this is a product called Botica. You can create fashion product photos, and they're selling you Lite, Pro, and Advanced, but it's not per user. It's per month, and you get a certain amount of photo credits. This is a company called Art Reader, similar type of generative product. They are also selling you certain amount of credits in a certain time period. And text prompts, this is, I believe it is in video.ai, and they are also selling in the same fashion. So this is now par for the course for generative AI products. It is not par for the course of how Sam Altman did it. People are charging based on buckets of credits because this is how they are going to protect their margin. Now, in the Zendesk example, I'm coming back to that. This is an enterprise company that included AI powered bots as part of all of its tiers. It included some amount of automated resolutions per agent per month. So this is the metric they chose for those bots. It's dollar per automated resolution per agent per month. That is a very interesting metric. Why is it an interesting metric? Because if you're coming up with new chatbots, you have multiple options. You can choose per resolution is something that they said, but you could have something like a bot response, how many times the bot says anything at all. Or you could even have something like a monthly active users who are using the bot. Now here I have listed a way that you can copy, and you can do this in your own case. But if I was the person doing the dollar per metric selection for Zendesk, I would say yes, dollar per resolution will be considered valuable by customers. That is clear. It is not fitting mental anchors, which may be okay because it's a new type of product anyway. It is definitely aligned to their success, because the more that cases are resolved, the more successful their customers are, and there is going to be usage. But is it proportionate to cost? I really don't know, because the definition of resolution is very fuzzy. As Zendesk, they may define some resolution definition, but it is not necessarily that across 10 customers, then you might not get like 5 different definitions for resolution. And then you are stuck fighting fires and overhead with customers. No competitors are charging like this. Is it implementable? I don't know, because if the definition keeps changing, how will you implement this resolution thing? So I would have been very skeptical about this, because it may align with customers, but it may open up another can of worms that I don't know how to deal with. And on that, I want to say, this is a type of outcome based pricing, and it is not at all clear whether outcome based pricing works. It may be a giant failure, in which case you would be wrong to copy Zendesk. In general, you would be wrong to copy anything from anybody. That is not how you should run your business. but it is a trend in the valley, and I always talk against copying anything and making your own judgment for your own business. Now, if you look at dollar per MEU, for example, it can also be considered valuable because it's proportional to the amount of end consumers that are using the service. It is also aligned to usage. You will get enough usage there. Is it proportionate to cost? We don't know, but it is a better metric than per resolution. And it is more predictable. Once you have enough data generated, then you can model costs. And it's definitely much more implementable. It is much more clear and easy to define MAU. And there is not going to be any debate on what MAU is. So, this is just one example of how you can make a list, make your judgment on the trade-offs, and have a discussion, and as an organization decide what is the right metric for you. All right, so we'll keep going. The last point is price, the setting of price points. So price point setting is also an art, but it uses some information. You want to see, are you competitive in the market? Now, it also depends on the nature of the market. Are you a blue ocean market or are you a red ocean market? If you're a blue ocean market with low competition, there's not much competitive comparison you have to worry about. You will rather just focus on the ROI delivered and take a cut from it. But if it is a competitive market, then you have to see where are you versus competition. Look at your cogs. If you have a certain amount of cost to provide the product, then that puts a floor for your pricing. So you have to see what that is. You have to see how much the product is being used as well. And then you can do some testing, quantitative or qualitative testing, to find the right price point. But you have to triangulate the price point from a few different variables. So what is to be understood for AI products specifically is that the margins are lower, and this is a little bit of a math around the margins. R&D costs are going to be higher because you have to develop some models of your own. There's going to be fine tuning required. It's not as easy as just throwing up an application layer website. The cloud infrastructure costs are obviously going to be higher. Data costs are higher, and there is an AI tax on the compliance side because you can open yourself to so much legal threats, because a lot of these AI products could infringe on somebody's intellectual property, and then that could be a serious jeopardy to your business. So this is all contributing to a lower gross margin. Now, I at one point in a previous webinar had done this math, and I'm just summarizing a math for you to make you understand. For one, let's say you're Zendesk and you're creating this product for one customer of Zendesk that has 100 agents. If you used ChatGPT 4.0, it would cost, for a very basic use case of summarizing all customer calls across the year, it would cost this company, Zendesk, hypothetically, right? Not Zendesk, but a company like Zendesk, $55,000 for one client that has 100 agents, and that works out to $45 per agent per month, which is 40 to 50% of how much their per agent cost. But if you use DeepSeek, that comes down to $6 per agent per month. So and DeepSeek is almost as good as 4.0 in terms of output. Product development, the engineering side also has to now account for the differing sort of models that are out there. You may try and experiment with something like 4.0, but as soon as you're successful, you need to switch over to some other model because you are bleeding money. And if you use ChatGPT 4.0, you are going to be bleeding money, and you will need to move on to something else that is more scalable. That requires an understanding of economics and costs on the engineering side, where previous CTOs have had no need to understand this and no need to have made technology choices. Only once in 2 or 3 years would an engineer come and say we have to optimize cost and reduce cost, but only after the CFO was talking and barking at them. But in this case, if the time period is too long, your company is out of business. So the CTO needs to understand the economics of the product now. So COGS is something that is key for AI products, right? And that is different from regular SaaS products. One of the most common way to assess a range of acceptable pricing is to do a Van Westendorp survey. So it's a series of 4 questions. Basically, and you can easily Google and read more about this, but basically you are asking a price above which it would be too expensive for the customer to buy, and they would certainly not buy, and a point below which they would question the quality. And then there are 2 layers beneath that. So there's a set of 4 questions you ask, and it gives you a range of acceptable prices. So for a chosen product, for a selected tier, you can ask this question from survey format. The challenge that usually happens is that many enterprise products, you can't just send a survey because If you have this crazy security product, people are not necessarily going to understand from a survey just through written text what you're trying to ask. You have to have the right people to ask, and in some cases you may have to do sort of an in-person research approach where you're asking these questions but an in-person method. And we have a methodology where we go through this approach for enterprise companies and more complex products. The inherent nature of the questions don't change, it is just the delivery. Sometimes you may need to do in-person calls if the survey method is not the best method. That being said, the Van Westendorf approach is still applicable. So when I share the slides, there is the in-person research approach that I had just mentioned that we do, which involves interviewing 15 to 20 clients and prospects, which will give you the similar analysis, but you can go much deeper. You can get understanding of how they value your packages. You can get an understanding of a lot of other things around your product, as well as the problem and pain point by this qualitative research approach. So these are the different tools you have access at your disposal to do a willingness to pay research. So, in summary, what was the packaging based on? It was based on the nature of your market, always, right? Whether it's a new product or a new feature that you're launching, it's how many people are valuing you and what is the willingness to pay generally. So, that is the summary on packaging. Packaging is always a function of your market, the nature of your market. Pricing metric is a balancing between what makes customers win and what makes you win. I advise you to lay out options on the table and pick one, but don't blindly copy someone else. And finally, price points. Understand, like a lot of other things don't change from traditional SaaS product price point setting, but what changes is COGS, and the COGS are very different. And because of COGS, a lot of companies are never going to use something like user-based pricing, because the Sam Altman example, maybe somebody's going to use your product a lot and you will start losing money. So you will be almost forced into using some sort of usage-based model, but even within a usage based model there are a lot of options. All right, so those were most of our points. We covered the blockbuster nature of AI products. We covered the regime change that these pricing packaging decisions and the way these products are built have a huge implication of how the next crop of AI companies are going to operate. We do believe that they're going to operate differently, we value differently, the industry will work differently, and then specific points on pricing and packaging that you will need to at least start with for your AI products. So we are the SaaS industry's top pricing experts. We have a course called The Art of SaaS Pricing and Monetization. You can check it out on Maven. We have a book called Price to Scale. It's the second edition. It's on Amazon. You can scan this QR code to schedule a call with us. I'm happy to talk to you anytime. And these are the companies that we have together helped and led product marketing and pricing teams in. So I thank you so much for your time. And if you have questions, feel free to schedule a call with me or email me at ajit@getmonetizely.com. I'm going to quickly check if there are any questions in the LinkedIn feed, but if not, I will close the feed. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there are questions, so I will end the stream now. Thank you.